Shalom, warriors of Yahuwah and the truth. I am going to do another video today because I have a lot of work to do tomorrow.
I was gonna vacuum. I'll do it later.
Alright, babe.
Yeah, but I don't know if
Yeah.
can come through this.
I hope so. Pray that dashes come through.
Well,
In
it's
Yahushua's
bad.
name. Amen. Moon phases as seen from Earth.
What? Subway?
There are many pitfalls as we earnestly contend for the belief which was once for all delivered to the set-apart ones. There is a new moon and a full moon, but no crescent or silver moon is ever mentioned in Scripture. Here we'll study how the earth, moon, and sun move together to provide the signals for the annual festivals. This is the moon phases. When we discover the importance of the 7 annual Shabbats of Yahuwah's year, Leviticus 23 and Deuteronomy 16, we're influenced by older teachers who explain how to identify a new moon by watching for the silver to appear in the western sky at sunset. They teach this in the signal is the signal to watch for that begins the first day of the moon. For about 3 years, Lu counted to the feast using this sighted crescent moon as the start point. Each time the full moon arrived, when he counted off 14 days. By his count to 15, the festival day, the moon had begun to shrink smaller, wane, and was missing the amount of light he had started with. Then he investigated for scripture-based evidence that could validate what they were saying and found nothing to support it. They claim the Yahudim used to do it, but that's hardly validation because what some group may have practiced in the past doesn't make something correct. The sighted moon was adopted by Anan in 766 CE, who broke away to form the Karaites, or Karites. Certain sects of Yasharal were different in their practices, as we see several distinct groups mentioned in the Messianic writings. The worldwide body of dispersed Yahudim that remain true to the Torah today have additional baggage like Talmud, but they remain unchanging in their core principles, such as the 7-day week, the 7th-day Shabbat, the annual Moedim appointments, and how they determine the beginning of each moon. What is a week, a day, and a moon? A week is a unit of 7 nights and days. A day is from evening to evening, experienced from whatever location one happens to be on the earth. A moon is concerned with neither a week or a day, but is the complete orbital cycle of the moon around the earth, beginning and ending when the moon comes between the earth and the sun. It happens to take 697 Earth hours, or 29.5 days, and this orbit is not concerned with any one location on the Earth. A renewed moon concerns the Earth, moon, and sun in relation to one another. And that is the illustration for that. From Yahuwah's point of view, a day ends at sunset and a new day begins. Genesis 1. He started creation with complete darkness, and light followed, even as a day begins at night and progresses until it is fully light, then wanes again toward night. The renewal of the moon follows this pattern. If we begin a new moon with 0 light and watch the growth of light on the face of the moon each evening, we can become skilled at determining what day of the moon it is. If we follow the idea that sighting the crescent moon at sunset is the beginning of the first day of the month, then we ignore the fact that the light we are seeing as a crescent represents the amount of light that has been building on it when we could not see the moon disk and the brilliance of the sun, and it is really the beginning of the 2nd day of the moon when you see the crescent.
If you take the car down, that's how you can get votes too. BMW.
Yeah, I just can't find one.
Well, the city isn't.
I don't know. We must begin our count with 0, which is when the moon has reached its center point between the earth and the sun. When we see the light of a thin crescent, we are seeing the light of the fully built first day. If we call the beginning of the second day of the moon the first day, then our count to the annual Shabbats will be off one day off. The full moon is consistently the 15th day of each moon, and the feast of Matzah as well as Sukkot begin on the 15th day of the moon, when it is full, not waning. The text in Psalms describes the Feast of Trumpets, and the festival of Sukkot is in the 7th moon. Consider this text which describes Yom Teruah, or the Day of the Shout, and demonstrates how the festivals of Sukkot begins on the full moon. You blow the shofar at the time of the new moon, at the full moon on our festival day. The starting point for a renewed moon continues to be a point of debate among various groups of Nazarene today. Many illustrations are provided like the one above, often promoting a sliver crescent moon sighted in the western sky after sunset as being the beginning of the first day of a moon. The sighting of the crescent silver is declared to be the arrival of the first day of the moon. Most accept this explanation and never question where this can be confirmed in the writings of Scripture, Torah, the instruction. The activity is not found in Torah, but rather it is derived from the Quran and the Hadith of Islam. Yeah.
Those are expensive too.
The crescent moon of Allah was the tribal symbol of Muhammad's family. The Arabic word for the crescent new moon is hilal, the same word found in the Hebrew text of Yashayahu or Isaiah 14, which is translated as Lucifer in the KJV. See H reference number or concordance number 1966 in your concordance. Hilal is the Islamic term for the sighting of the crescent moon and is definitely associated with a pre-Islamic moon deity, Allah. Allah is a pronoun, not a name. It's Hebrew. The crescent moon is a very ancient symbol revered by Persia, India, Egypt, Islam, and Masonry. At the higher levels of Freemasonry, the royal secret is revealed to the light seekers, that they worship Lucifer under various names, one of which is Allah. Masons seek the light. In order for a person to become a Shriner, he must go through all the degrees of Masonry, make blood-curdling oaths, worship all the various gods of Egypt, and make a blood oath of allegiance to Allah as his god, and Muhammad as his prophet. The Shriner is then given a red fez, with an Islamic sword and crescent jeweled on it. This originates from 7th century Arabia, when the Muslims, under the leadership of Muhammad, slaughtered all Christians who would not bow down to Allah. Allah is the tribal deity, the moon god of Muhammad. This is why every mosque today has a crescent moon on the top of its dome. A dome is a symbol of Hermes, the Greek deity of wisdom, revered by Masonry. The Hebrew word kippah, a yarmulk, means dome. The bull or ox with a white crescent moon on its shoulder is the Egyptian Apis. It was believed he would emerge from a river and rise into the air when the Egyptians gathered around him with music and chanting. Moon worship was the primary religious practice of the city known today as Jericho. It is thought that the name is derived from the Canaanite name Uriah, meaning moon. The moon was sometimes worshipped as a male and other times as a female.
You okay?
Yeah.
What do you mean to do?
Nothing. The pre-Islamic Arabian moon deity was Allah, the greatest deity of 360 idols in the Kaaba, and the tribal deity of Muhammad. Mecca was the center of pre-Islamic pagan worship. This is the picture for this. Pagan worship. In the Quran, Allah swears by the moon in the verse of Surah 74:32. Before Islam, the pagan Arabian moon deity Allah had 3 daughters, goddesses. Alat, Aluza, and Manat, who were considered very powerful. The symbol above represent these daughters. Their names appeared in several verses on the earliest versions of the Quran, but the texts were later removed and labeled satanic verses or satanic verses. They were the maiden mother and crone goddesses of the Arabs. In 1988, Salman Rushdie published a book entitled Satanic Verses, citing the verses of the Quran mentioning 3 daughters of Allah that had been deleted. In response to this book, a fatwa, or religious edict, was issued in 1989 by Ayatollah Khomeini, then Supreme Leader of Iran, calling for the death of Salman Rushdie. Wiccans honor the goddess and the crescent moon and the primary symbol for her. This deity has been worshipped under various names such as Diana, Artemis, Selene, and Libertas. The Latin name Libertas was adopted by Thomas Jefferson when he named the U.S. Capitol building the Temple of Libertas and placed her statue atop the dome. He was a Mason and simply had to honor the moon deity. Our capital is dedicated to a Greco-Roman moon deity. If Paul were to visit Washington, D.C., he could almost believe he was in Athens or Rome. We have strongholds to overcome. A stronghold is a false belief or notion and are overcome with truth. The sighting of the crescent moon comes from every corner of ancient pagan worship. In ancient Syria, the moon deity Sin was represented by the crescent moon. In Ur, bread was baked in the form of a crescent to honor their moon deity. Nanar, giving us the custom of crescent rolls, croissant. The word Monday comes from the Latin name for the second day, Dies Lunae, day of the moon. Many languages reflect this custom. French lundi, Spanish lunes, German Montag, Dutch Mandag, Italian lunedì. In Japanese, these days are named in order for the sun, moon, then 5 planets. Over the whole earth, the cultures have adopted terms from the worship of their celestial objects. But one stiff-necked people have remained stubborn enough to never fully assimilate into whatever culture they have found themselves. They would be what we call Jews, or the people descended from the tribe of Yehuda. If we examine when they observe the renewed moon, we find they reckon from the dark moon. This way, the full moon on the 15th is always correct for the count to Matzah in the first moon, and Sukkot in the 7th moon. We must begin the measuring of time from 0, which means 0 light, darkness, when the moon is dark. As the first day of the moon is building, the moon is moving away from the conjunction between Earth and the sun. Hidden in the brilliance of the sun, the light reflected from the limb of the moon builds slowly until we can finally see the effects of the past time on the moon just after sunset. The sighting of the crescent sliver declares the second day of the moon is beginning. It can't possibly be the beginning of the first day. It's already fully built. Prior to the renewed moon, a crescent of the moon can be seen in the eastern sky just before sunrise on the 29th day of every moon, which is often noticed by those awake in the early morning hours. When Lou was a paper boy in his youth, he saw this waning crescent. A shepherd would also recognize this and know that the renewed moon would be the following day. 1 Samuel 20:18. So Jonathan said to him, "Tomorrow in the new moon is the new moon, and you shall be missed because your seat shall be empty." Sheep herders are often awake all night. Today we know exactly where the moon is and when the renewed moon arrives. Long ago, they knew how to count and notice the waning crescent before sunrise. We can determine where the moon will be far into the future, and even to predict when and where the shadow of the moon will fall, eclipses. We know where it is down to the inch. We know where it is down to the inch. Recognizing the phases for what they are need not be a cause for division. And yet every annual Shabbat there are at least 3 divisions among the Nazarene as to how to reckon the renewed moon. The teachings we embrace are strongholds of thought, and we must overthrow the errors in teaching with Scripture. 2 Corinthians 10:6. For the weapons we fight with are not fleshly, but mighty in Elohim, for overthrowing strongholds, overthrowing reasonings, and every high matter that exalts itself against the knowledge of Elohim, taking captive every thought to make it obedient to the Mashiach, and being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is complete. Consider the appointed times we should be observing, as we have been enjoined to Yahuwah. We become engrafted to Yasharal and his covenant, Leviticus 23. The Shabbat, or weekly Passover, unleavened bread, Shavuot, called Pentecost, and the appointments of the 7th moon, Yom Teruah, or Day of the Shout, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot tabernacles. Think of how these are Yahuwah's redemption plan for Yasharal, and that Yahusha's work has and will be accomplishing that redemption through all of these shadows. The shadows outline the solid object casting them, so they are prophetic symbols pointing to something highly important. So celebrating the feast days is very, very important. We try our best.
We'll do a better one.
Yeah.
Hopefully I have a better chat material.
Yeah, I hope so
We
too.
already started. We have that.
The next one is the plan of redemption. Reflect on the following correction of this verse we are all familiar with. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a festival or of the new moon or of the Shabbat days, which are a shadow of things to come for the body of Mashiach. Colossians 2:16-17. Restoring this verse to its literal Hebrew roots, the meaning comes through clearly. The festivals are shadows, picturing how Yahusha is redeeming Yasharal. Cited moon origins, Circe and Crescent. No, Kirk or church. Yeah, my back hurts and my stomach is bloated again. Okay, it's okay. This is a picture for that. That's the coin. Is there a word for crescent or sliver found in the Hebrew text? When is the new moon? The Yahudim have observed the appointed times for thousands of years, but newcomers to the festivals think they know better how to observe them. Logic will reveal that the new moon has to be 15 days before the full moon. Otherwise, the full moon wouldn't be the 15th day of the moon. The new moon and full moon are planet-wide occurrences. Because we now have 24 time zones, individual locations have different perspectives, and the first day of the moon is spread over 24 hours. In the year 767 CE, a disagreement occurred in calculating the new moon. A man named Anan started a new sect. This sect began to use the sighted crescent to determine the beginning of each month. Not knowing the origins of this change in behavior, many Nazarene are receiving conflicted information from teachers on this subject. Tradition. We are Yahusha's body, and tradition is like an infection in the body. Going untreated, it will spread and infect the whole body. If you research every word of Scripture, you will not find the term crescent. Scripture mentions the new moon and the full moon. Many of us start out understanding the new moon is to be sighted by some means in the western sky at sunset, marking the beginning of each month. Is this really true? Okay. Rather than following tradition, okay, we need truth. Truth is the mortal enemy of tradition. Traditions are defended with great enthusiasm and are hotly defended when challenged or exposed as originating in pagan customs. Traditions have origins, and it is important to track those origins to their source. If a teaching is not found in Scripture, why should it be practiced as if there were, or as if it were there? The pre-Islamic moon deity, called Allah, is symbolized by a crescent moon and star. We find the crescent and star used as a component of Aum, or A-U-M, symbol. The Hindu trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Hindu trinity, Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. Star, and then crescent. Egyptian moon deity. Okay, this is the illustrations for that. The crescent is up here, and the star is right there. The crescent moon was also venerated in the Egyptian culture, with the moon below a solar disk because Christianity sprang from Alexandria, Egypt. These objects in the sky were also adopted from veneration. In the photo above, the monstrance held by a pope shows a crescent moon below the circular sun disk. The sighted moon became important to a new sect that split away from rabbinical Judaism in the 7th century. Today they are called Karaites, and many Nazarene are being influenced by what they teach, propelled by Nazarene teachers. Yahusha guides us into all truth, opening our minds to the way he sees teachings. He purifies our minds from outside sources, most especially the worship of anything in the heavens above, or the Shamayim, or on the Eretz, the earth, or in the waters, the Mayim, under the Eretz. We fall prey to false teachings because we're like sheep, listening to voices other than their true shepherd. We can easily be led away, pretty much lambs to the slaughter. Intolerance to the point of death. Variations from established beliefs or customs within Christianity, Rabbinic Judaism, or Yehudaism, Islam, and Marxism have been punished with excommunication or death. Okay. Islam and Marxism have been punished with excommunication or death. Islam is divided between Sunni and Shia, and their differences have inflamed a deadly conflict that's lasted over 1,300 years. Christianity is split in two. Thousands of sects because they did not choose to abide in Yahuwah's word, 10 commandments, in order to be united in his name. The first main schism was in 1054 when the Eastern and Western Catholic bishops excommunicated one another, resulting in a pope and a patriarch. Each considers the other a heretic and anathema, worthy of death. In 1517, a Catholic priest and professor of theology nailed 95 theses to the door of All Saints Church in Wittenberg, Germany. Luther's called for Reformation quickly caused the Pope's headship to become wounded to death. Nobility protested at his office being the head of the Catholic Church. Since 1541, Jesuits have pursued the healing of this head wound by all means, and their latest efforts are through ecumenism. Hate and violence against those holding close beliefs in common, knowing the divisions are caused by the dragon, we can unite against our common enemy and love one another in spite of our differences. And then the last section I'm going to read in our lesson tonight is How the Division Began, the Sighted Moon, the Karaite Connection. Anan Ben Daud is widely believed to be the founder of the Karaite Sect. In the mid-8th century CE, under Islamic rule, Anan started a movement which broke away from rabbinical Judaism. It was Anan's hope to become the head rabbi, but he was passed over by his younger brother, who held more closely to the Torah and oral law, the traditions of the fathers. Anan's followers installed him in the position of exilarch. Anyway, so there was a conflict of headship. The Caliph al-Mansur viewed this argument as rebellion and arrested Anan in 767 and set his execution date. While in prison, Anan met an Islamic teacher who gave him advice that saved his life. Anan was to establish a new religion. Okay, I'm going to end the lesson here. I hope everyone enjoyed it, and I hope everyone watches the next one. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. I love you all, Miss Paco. The next sections I'm going to do in the next lesson are Anan's doctrinal arguments, which is correct and why.
People shouldn't need stuff. This is stuff.
Sighted moon or calculated.
Come on.
Worship of the hosts of heaven. Symbols of Allah and his daughters. Restoration, not reformation. And I believe that's all I'll have time for that tomorrow. But if I have time to do more, I might go on and read Come, I Shall Show You the Bride, the Lamb's Wife, along with that. So I hope everyone has a good evening. Yahuwah bless you all. We're almost done with this book so far. Stay safe, everyone. And I will be going on to the Reapers next after this book is done. I love you all. Yahuwah bless you.